Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast. I am Chris Niemeyer here with my good friends Chris McCluskey, Jamie Slingerland, and Michael McGreevy. We are just four guys who are crazy about our wives. We love our kids, and we want to kill it in business. And this is just a weekly show where we get to have a conversation around those topics, being intentional about them. And this week we got a special long-time listener, first-time caller, guest question from Nick Pavlidis. Nick, what do you got for us?
Hey guys, Nick from the EFM community, big fan of your show. And my question for you is, when you're building a business and you want to build a business from home, what are some of the ways that you guys advise scaling and building a business so that way you don't necessarily have a ceiling, but you don't also end up either feeling you have or actually outgrowing working from home? So what are some of the things you guys recommend for being able to not have to or go back to the corporate world or have an office space? Look forward to listening to the answer. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Nick, great question. How can you scale your business working from home, not create a ceiling for yourself, and still keep the lifestyle that you want? Gentlemen, I'm looking forward to this conversation, and let's just dive in and talk about a couple points we came up with around this concept that's Nick is asking about. So point number one, pursue creatively. Pursue creatively. How do we pursue our businesses and the ideas we have in a creative way?
I'll start off by saying when I first started to hear Nick pose his question, I didn't know where he was going with it. And I thought he was going to be talking about the challenges of working from home, just like as an entrepreneurial family man with little kids outside and the noise and the distractions and all. I figured that's what he was going. He's actually saying, no, I'm working from home. I'm just concerned that as my business grows, the complexity, having other hires and maybe product or assembly or things like that, I got to look at brick and mortar. I got to move out from the home. But I'm just going to kind of say something first on the initial challenge of working from home at all, that I can remember when we moved out here to the farm and we got the single wide mobile home trailer. I knew I'm working from home, but not that home, because I can't work in a place where I've got four other children, one of them a newborn, and my wife trying to homeschool the older ones. And where am I going to be? Like in a closet or something? There just wasn't any space. So just the challenge of working from home, period, calls for creativity, which I think is the first point we're going to hit here, the importance of creativity. But that's kind of out of the chute for anything that is going to be a home-based business, a lifestyle entrepreneurial venture like what we're all about, is that it has to lean in heavily to creativity. I knew immediately, can't work in that space, and yet I want to be at home. Got to get some kind of an outbuilding, some kind of another structure that I can walk out to. Doesn't even have to have a bathroom or a kitchenette or anything else, but I got to have some other place to go. And I know, some of us work from attic spaces or built out garages or whatever, but creativity, period, when you're working from home is a constant watchword.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where you have to be creative in this space, whether it's working from home, an attic, a trailer, a horse barn, you name it. Jamie, what's it been like for you, man? You've been working at home for several years too.
I think the creativity piece is really difficult when you're super isolated. What I would say is I think creativity is an exercise that needs to be practiced, because we can look around and not see any examples of anybody doing it and doing it the way that we would like to do it with our lifestyle. And so we say it can't be done. We need to tell ourselves it can be, not only can it be done, but exercise that muscle of creativity and in mindset of say, hey, there's more than one way of doing this, and there's got to be a lot of different possibilities out there instead of just either you can't do it or you can sort of thing.
I remember not even realizing how much baggage I took with me from the past positions and work that I used to have. So I'm coming into this entrepreneurial lifestyle with this mindset of, it's Wednesday morning. I need to be working in my office. And suddenly you have a whole different set of rules where you can be creative within. Actually, just this morning, A friend of mine is opening a new store on a street nearby, and I just said, "Hey, Gunnar, you want to go with me and check out this guy's new store?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll go." So Wednesday morning, 10 o'clock, out the door we go and hang out, check out his store. He was asking for a little bit of advice on what to do with the renovations. But I think one step for me was just to realize, to give myself permission to do things completely different than what I was used to doing. That kind of helped me foster some of the creativity to do other crazier things too.
Yeah, that's a good point. This whole idea of non-traditional ways of doing things. Especially if you've had a previous job where in corporate America where you kind of have to fit that model, looking at kind of non-creative ways or non-traditional ways to do things is a big deal. I mean, for our first business back in 2006, we were getting ready to start this online travel agency, and we had an opportunity to get some office space with a guy who was helping us out, and he said, "Hey, you can start here, and as you grow, you can lease space." And part of the whole reason we wanted to do this was to get out of that rat race of waking up, fighting traffic, finding a parking spot, going up an elevator, wearing a suit and tie. It was, let's do this from home. We can start this as a home office, work from the couch if we want to. So this whole idea of finding some non-traditional ways to creatively grow is a big opportunity. Point number 2 is seek wisdom. Seek wisdom. If you want to grow in a non-traditional way and scale from home because you want to protect that business, that lifestyle that you want, seek wisdom in this matter. Michael, what's it look like for you recently in seeking wisdom in business opportunities?
Man, I've always had this vision as a part of my business to run some Airbnb properties, to have some investment properties that's generating some income for me. But man, my mind goes all over the place. I have one year I want to live in Tennessee. The next year I want to live in Florida. Then the next month I want to live somewhere else. So I'm kind of all over the place with what I get excited about. And Chris McCluskey, you probably remember this. We were in the water in Cuba. You were swimming around looking at the fish, and you came up one time. You're just kind of asking me about my vision for that. And we started talking about family and the situation that I had here in Western New York, about how close I am to all my brothers and sisters and how close my kids are with their kids. And you just said, man, you can go all over the world to amazing places, but you can't ever replicate that. And that really stuck with me. And it's because we were doing life together, spending time together, that I know you, I trust you, I know where your heart is. And that really resonated deep down with me. And it really shaped my decision making moving forward with where I was willing to purchase a property and what would make the most sense for my family and my vision. And so that right there, like, I knew I needed wisdom because of how scattered I was, and you were there right at the right time to speak that into me.
Gosh, I do remember that. And of course, at the time, it's not like you have any heads up or warning sign or something, wisdom being sought here, say something intelligent.
Right.
Like you said, we were just sharing life together. Gosh, we're splashing around in the ocean in the Caribbean. But I do remember that. And what an awesome example of this very point. You're already living the creative piece of it, but you were about to step into waters that for you would have been very creative, but not necessarily wise for the future of your family. I didn't tell you not to do that. It wasn't wisdom like advice. It was just you were wise enough to listen to a check that said, what are the things that you value most? What would you lose if you pursue these other kinds of things? It's a great example. Wisdom doesn't always come in a prepackaged kind of a tell me what to do thing. More often, it calls us back to our own truth that we can very easily lose sight of.
Yeah, and it felt subtle in the moment. Like you said, it didn't feel like, let's have a wisdom session. It was more like, we're just hanging out, and this seed was planted in my mind that I could think about and marinate on, and it confirmed some of the things that were under the surface that I was already thinking.
In the same vein, it was just a couple days ago that we were on a call. It was Monday, actually. And I was having a whining session because I had some issues. But one of my main products that I'm fulfilling on Amazon got rejected. I don't know. It's outside of my control. And then I was talking to all three of you guys, and Niemeyer, you made the point. That's not even what you want to do long term. You want to have more freedom and flexibility. That was not necessarily what I wanted to hear at the time, but it definitely wasn't what I was thinking in my own mind. I was having a pity party, and I was looking for solutions to solve this problem. I'm actually trying to appeal that case. And you guys were like, well, what does this make possible if you never get it on, if you never solve that problem? There's definitely value about seeking wisdom, especially if you're trying to go after this life that we're going after, which is definitely super far outside of the box.
I love both those examples because it just illustrates when you're living in proximity with other guys that you can trust and you can rely on, it's easy just to have these conversations that, again, it's not packaged as a wisdom call or a whining call. Help me out, guys, right? It's just we're doing life together. We're living in community. We're masterminding together. We're mentoring each other. That's what seeking wisdom is like. And so it's finding those people in your life that you can just reach out to and say, hey, here's what's going on. This is, in Nick's example, Nick's question, this is the kind of business I want to scale because this is the life I want to live with my family. Help me get there. What am I not seeing here? And that's really going to help frame, really, and leading to point number 3. Point number 3 is just take action. You've pursued things creatively. You've sought wisdom. Now let's take action. This is where the rubber meets the road. What could that look like?
Well, and Chris, you brought up a point earlier that I think we can reference with regard to that third point, because you did take action on launching the kind of business that you and Alicia were dreaming about doing with the travel agency. And you very specifically took action in the opposite direction of a brick and mortar kind of a place that wouldn't have allowed you to work from home. So the action we're talking about here is still in line with the bigger vision of the lifestyle that you want as a family. Then yes, pursue creativity, seek wisdom, take action in alignment with that entrepreneurial family lifestyle. Don't even look at a brick and mortar kind of a thing. Don't look at something that's going to get you tied down to a physical location if that doesn't fit into the rest of the bigger vision that you're working on.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's something we talked about in terms of having that longer term picture of what you want it to look like. But then there's just going to be these immediate steps, right? Each week as you're growing a business, you have things on a to-do list daily, weekly, monthly. You're not always working on a 3-year plan. There's things that are going to be right in front of you that day that will move the ball down the field toward that bigger picture.
Yeah, I have a hard time sometimes connecting the dots of what I'm doing now and where it's going to lead me. So I need to constantly remind myself of that, because there's probably a lot of people that are in a similar spot where they're investing into things that give them other opportunities. We're taking the money from one thing that we're doing and we're planting into something that is more in line with what we're doing. So it's really important that we have that clarity and focus on what we're called to do now. And it might not necessarily feel like it's moving us to where we're going, but we need to be good stewards of what we're doing now, because we know if we're faithful with that, then we get to do other things that are more in line with what we're doing, where we're going.
You know, one of the things that Nick mentioned in his question was this idea of scaling and getting bigger and building. I think what he was saying is, what if he wants to build a huge business, make a huge impact, maybe lead a team, maybe have several employees? How do you do that from home? Because he saw that there was a ceiling there. And, you know, not everybody's wired like Jamie and I, where we want to just be free and flexible and we don't care as much about building a large business. But fortunately, we're a little bit different here on this call, right? The Chris's, you tend to be a little more executive minded, wired in that growth mindset a little bit more. Nehemiah, how has that been for you? I'm just curious, like, you have that innate desire to grow and build something big, yet you also want to maintain this family lifestyle that you have where you have freedom and flexibility. How do you make sense of that conflict in your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, you know, a lot of times there are plenty of opportunities out there. There's going to be, as entrepreneurs, we know that a business is just solving a problem, right? I think someone just said it recently. Business is solving a problem for a profit. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities out there, but does it align with your values? And so for me, it's like there's going to be opportunities to do things. Number one, if it's a brick and mortar, that's like a ball and chain to me. So I'm not going to even touch that. And so when you have these opportunities to take a look at how does that really filter through my values, if it does, okay, let's pursue this and take a course of action to explore what that could be like. McCluskey, I don't know, what about you in terms of this? Because we're very similar in the way that we pursue things, but if you don't even have all the answers, but you know there's an opportunity out there because you see a problem, what's that look like for you?
Yeah, and I know that probably some of what Nick is looking for is some very, practical or granular kind of like how-tos or tips or pointers on like what to do, not just the general way to be, which we're principally addressing here because we want to apply to many different businesses. But I know just this weekend, I'll take an example from there. I was on Facebook scrolling through my feed, and I see a picture of a colleague of mine who owns a very large, well-established ICF-aligned coach training school just like I do. And the picture that I saw there was of a room full of people that he was training, and it says, starting up day 3 of our training over here in Thailand. Now, I look at that, and I'm like, how cool is that for him? And that is never going to happen for me because I don't want to be training and running my school in any physical location, Thailand, or he trains in several different places in Singapore and all, very missionary minded, and he's been in those countries and knows that. So he is moving in alignment with his, and that requires him to be in a physical location. Mine runs from here because I want to be on my dirt road in the middle of nowhere in the foothills of the Ozarks, and yet I've got 57, 58 employees all over the U.S. and Canada. Train in 40 some odd countries, but always just via distance. The kinds of businesses that you may be running, if you're looking at the need for brick and mortar, I assume a lot of that pertains to needing a place for people to work. I don't know what kind of work it is specifically they're needing, but any of it that can be done at their homes, if you can work in a gig economy kind of a thing, contract with them as 1099s, not as W-2 employees, pay them for the results of the work they do, not hourly, then they can stay where they are. You can stay where you are. My team never meets unless we all decide to go on a big retreat somewhere. Our meeting is all virtual, Zoom rooms, like how we're recording this podcast right now. Everything is done virtually. Again, Chris, back to your point, because that was more in alignment with my vision for the lifestyle that I wanted for my family. Therefore, all of my businesses run that way. Don't want to be tied down to the other.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And we both operate our businesses very similarly. I got employees all across the country. We're on Zoom multiple times a week. We meet up once or twice a year, but that's just the way that this economy works these days. And I think sometimes it's hard to get out of that maybe corporate mindset that you've got to have this building and a presence and a sign on building. Let's remember this too. Some of the biggest companies out there that are household names now, Uber doesn't own any cars until very recently. Airbnb, biggest chain in the world, they actually don't own any properties. So you can just kind of go down the list. Now, of course, they've got some corporate build-outs in their executive teams, but there are so many creative ways to do this. And I think it's just, again, it's taking action, seeing, okay, is this an alignment? And what do I need to do next to make this thing happen?
Yes. There's companies right now that list themselves as having offices in several different major cities around the world. And all that means is they've got somebody who owns a home in that place and they work from that place. So there's their overseas office. That's the 21st century. That is the world that we work in. Doesn't work for all kinds of businesses. But again, I think one of the big takeaways that we're looking at is be sure and pay attention to the way you're even considering what you might do with your business. Is that going to be in alignment with the big vision of the lifestyle you want? If it's not, don't keep entertaining it. It'll have plenty of things to recommend it and make it attractive. But if it's not in alignment with the value and the vision you have for your family, keep thinking. Seek more wisdom. Get more creative because there are probably other ways as well.
Hey, EFM has offices in 4 different major cities and 2 countries if you count Mexico and where Jamie works from half the year.
And Chris, I'm going to challenge you, that friend of yours in Thailand, do something in the Cayman Islands. You might enjoy that.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So Nick, thanks for the question. This is one I think that's on a lot of guys' minds as you have a side hustle or a small business or something you're starting. How do you scale it in a way that is in alignment with your values So what is it for you? If you're talking about these points, pursue it creatively. Look for some non-traditional ways to do things. Think outside the box about what can you bring to this that's going to make it worthwhile for you long term. And then seek wisdom. What's not clear for you? Where can you seek wisdom? Who can you seek wisdom to? And then where do you need to take action? Take those steps necessary to move your business forward.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man Podcast. Visit efmlife.com to connect with us and others like you who are pursuing success in enterprise, family, and marriage.